Recruiting volunteers is not just a matter of putting an advert out, and we've tried to help you ensure you have all your good practice measures in place with this series of presentation. So let's look at recruiting volunteers. Why are you recruiting volunteers? Is the organisation at all levels in favour of volunteers? Are there any worries over redundancies, job substitution, falls in standards, role conflict, etc.? Have you a budget for volunteers? Is it based on realistic costings? Volunteers aren't free. Do similar organisations you know involve volunteers? What's their experience? Have you looked at legal implications, confidentiality and safety? Are there specific problems that volunteers may face, e.g. safety or health risks, liability for giving the wrong advice? Volunteers bring new dimensions, new skills and enthusiasm. Can your organisation cope with change? Have you allocated staff or existing volunteers such as your trustees? Have you got time to manage volunteers long term and in the start-up phase? Ideally, the role of volunteer coordinator should be undertaken by a single member of your staff for continuity. Will your staff, volunteer coordinator, require further training for the role? Have you estimated the staff time required and the cost to train and manage volunteers? Have you sufficient space available and sufficient equipment to accommodate volunteers? There's no point involving them if you've got nowhere for them to sit and no computer for them to use. It's a computer-based role. How will the client group react to volunteer involvement? Have you asked them? Have you thought about your volunteer policy and what will be included in it? Have you taken specialist advice, contacted your own national headquarters or us at your local volunteer centre? Give some thought about what to include in these. What sort of role you are recruiting for, what message you want to convey about your organisation, etc. If you're wishing to recruit volunteers in a particular part of the community, such as young people, people with disabilities or those for whom English is not a first language, you need to make sure what you produce will work for that audience. For example, pictures and simple wording may work well for potential volunteers with a learning disability or for someone whose first language isn't English. Are you going to use leaflets, flyers, newspapers, radio, social media? Have you got a budget for advertising your volunteer roles? Newspaper adverts and radio advertising are seldom free, and many organisations have little or no budget. Remember, you don't have to spend money to recruit volunteers, as there are lots of free places you can display your roles. Think what type of volunteer, client group, geographical area you wish to recruit volunteers from, and then think what sort of places you could visit where you could advertise your roles. For example, schools, colleges, community centres, supermarket notice boards, libraries, sports clubs, day centres, GP surgeries, dentists, opticians. Do you have a website, blog, Twitter or Facebook feed or some other social media profile you could use? What about using a volunteer centre? Their services are completely free and all their roles are listed on their interactive search page, www.volops.com, and we also feature an opportunity of the day every single day on our social media feed. What about local free papers and community radio stations? Black Country Radio are a local community-based radio station who cover the whole of the Black Country, and they're happy to promote volunteer roles and get you on their station programming to promote what you do. Why not try them? Another option is attending community events, college careers fairs, volunteer fairs, things like that to get your message out there about what you do and the difference your volunteers make. It's a great way to recruit volunteers. A role or task description. You need to think about the roles and create a role task description for each one. You need to consider a role title, what the volunteer will be doing, the purpose of the role, skills, experience needed, what the volunteer will get out of it, any additional information about the role and contact details. Keep it short and simple with clear headings and avoid jargon and acronyms. This is your chance to tell potential volunteers all about the role. Staff and volunteer training. Do the people you plan to support volunteers have the necessary skills to do so, or do they need mentoring or training to be able to manage volunteers? You may have expertise yourself, or there could be other staff or volunteers with the necessary skills who can mentor people new to the role. Don't forget that the Volunteer Centre offers volunteer management training and ongoing support for those who need to boost their skills in this area. Who's going to support the volunteer? Think about who is going to manage to support the volunteer when they start. It's better if it's just one person, as a volunteer will then know who to go to if they have anything they wish to discuss. It also helps build a good relationship with the volunteer. Induction. All volunteers need induction into an organisation. It gives you the opportunity to explain how, why and where you operate. Not everyone, however, requires training, but they do require knowledge regarding how your organisation ticks. Thorough induction coupled with targeted and appropriate training is an essential part of good staff and volunteer management. Every organisation operates differently, so your induction needs to meet the needs of your organisation. Introducing and inducting all new volunteers ensures everyone understands systems and operates at the same level. Include a written induction sheet in the volunteers' information pack. This will enable them to systematically learn your procedures and be introduced to a variety of staff and other volunteers. What about a volunteer information pack or handbook? It's advisable that all information relevant to volunteers be organised within a handbook. This will give the volunteer a reference guide to the organisation, their role within it and any key information they need to know about. It can be used as part of the induction and gives volunteers the opportunity to digest the information in their own time and raise any queries. Supporting volunteers. This is an important element of involving volunteers, and you need to think who is going to do the ongoing support and more formal supervision sessions, plus create some record sheets for sessions. Let's go through a few things you need to think about. Depending on the nature of your organisation, information, application forms, etc. can either be sent beforehand or the interviewer can complete application or registration forms during the interview. Some organisations may require that informal and formal interviews take place. Other pre-selection ideas may include regular open days, videos, slideshows, presentations or tours of your premises. Why not consider involving existing volunteers when new volunteers come along to your organisation? Perhaps they could take part in the events and chat to prospective volunteers about their voluntary experience with your organisation. It is always best to ensure that any members of staff or volunteers who may be taking inquiries from potential volunteers have adequate information about the voluntary roles available and note any relevant information down. This will enable information to be sent on to the applicants. Should be simple, easy to read and understand. Keep them as brief as possible, as lengthy forms can deter potential volunteers who do not feel comfortable with writing and may not have English as their first language. If you're unsure about what to include in an application form, it may be helpful to contact another organisation or ask us at the Volunteer Centre to source sample forms for you. Respond quickly to a volunteer's request for an interview. Send out information about the organisation. Give the volunteer a reasonable amount of notice of the appointment in case they have to arrange a lift or arrange time off work. Be as flexible as possible about time, date and venue. For example, does a volunteer have a disability which may make it difficult for them to climb stairs or need wheelchair access? Does a potential volunteer work full-time? Do you need to offer them an evening appointment? Give clear directions to the interview venue. It may be helpful to include a map and a contact phone number in event of query. The following checklist may be helpful. Make sure that staff and other volunteers know that a volunteer is expected and let them have the name of the volunteer. There's nothing worse than arriving at somewhere to find they're not expecting you. Have a suitable space to interview, as quiet and private as possible. Set out the venue so you can face the volunteer and make sure they feel comfortable. Make sure you will not be interrupted. Allow plenty of time for the interview and ensure you have all the necessary information to hand. Discover how they heard about you. This can be a relaxing question to put people at ease and gives you the opportunity to consider your publicity and recruitment methods. Particularly if you require specialist skills, develop a person specification for the task required. If the potential volunteer does not meet any of the specifications for the task, you may have to explore their strengths and weaknesses, not as a method of exclusion, but to see what support, training or other roles you could offer them. Also, be aware of other agencies you can refer them on to if they are not suitable for your organisation. Don't forget the Volunteer Centre is here to help people into voluntary work, and you're welcome to refer any potential volunteers who may not be quite suitable for you to us so we can try and find them the perfect role. What's a person's availability? Hours, days, short term, long term, regular days and times, flexible, and how does this compare with what you are looking for? Want to help others? Have expertise they would like to use? lonely, unemployed or bored, suggested by a friend or colleague, gain experience in a new area, experience of similar work elsewhere, suggested by a professional advisor. What is their knowledge of the client group? How realistic is it? Give them an opportunity to ask questions and to opt out. Often this can be facilitated by a further interview, induction, training, etc. See if they have any concerns, questions or observations. Tour the premises to meet staff and other volunteers. Make sure they see a real picture of your organisation. Stress your moral obligation to support, train and help volunteers. Explain about induction, volunteer information pack, etc. Give them an opportunity. Would they fit in with the organisation? Would they understand or appreciate the work we do? Could they be a team player when required? Could they deal appropriately with clients if required? Do they have an appropriate level of interest in the work we do? Would they need training that we do not currently offer? You'll need to consider the following: references, DBS checks, equal opportunities and diversity, permissible restrictions on recruitment, e.g. does it have to be a male or female volunteer? Don't forget the volunteer centre is here to help you every step of the way, so please do get in touch and we can offer you any help, support or training you need to manage your volunteers effectively. The Volunteer Centre has a wide range of resources for those who manage volunteers. These range from sample documents, information sheets, we can give you links to online resources, and also potential networks that may help with your volunteer management where you can connect with other people who manage volunteers. There's no such thing as a silly question when you're involving volunteers, and we're more than happy to help you if we can. Please do get in touch and we'll do our best to help. Here are our contact details, email, direct phone number, and also our Facebook and Twitter feeds. There's loads of information on our website, which is volunteeringcounts.org.uk, including details of our training. We do regular posts on our blog sharing information, ideas, events, and also we have an opportunity of the day every single day for local volunteer involving groups. So why not get in touch and see how we can help you get the very best of your volunteer programme.